Hello everyone and welcome back to Sendik's Weather Channel. Not Levi's. Sendik's Weather Channel. Today we are looking at the latest from the models and something quite exciting today. We're going to look at the CFS Longrange model and Sendik's going to be making his first Winter 2025-26 predictions. This is where I get cancelled. Well, I thought, why not? Seeing as I've returned from holiday today, why not have a bit of fun and have a look at a longer range forecast. So we'll run through all of our regular features. We'll look at the midday runs when I'm recording this. They have just literally come out. So I thought, well, let's run through these. Then we'll have a look at the CFS for December into January. And then I'll give you my winter forecast predictions. Some of it might surprise you. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get straight into the video. If you do enjoy today's video, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel for more. I do appreciate your continued support. If you are wondering where I was, I left a community post. I put a community post out yesterday, or the day before. Can't remember when. Losing track of the days. We basically went to Whitby, family and that, and we had a really good time. So there's a few pictures on there if you want to have a look. Anyway, at the moment, so the weather's been pretty quiet recently. I can tell you when I was on holiday, not too much went on. High pressure centred out to our west, low pressures to our north. Winds are in from the northwest. So it's, you know, relatively average temperatures, slightly below average. Nothing too much is going on at the moment. If we go beyond that, though, into next week, high pressure remains out to our southwest. Winds are remaining from the west in the northwest, going into more of a northerly into the last part of next week. So definitely turning things a lot cooler and just more changeable. It's most unsettled in the north with weaker pressure gradients out to our northeast. We can see possibly a few showers, particularly along the east coast. Eventually high pressure tries to relocate itself and does, and we actually see by the 4th of August a bit of a warmer plume of air moving in. I say warmer, it's not hot, it's 10 degrees for them, so nothing too ridiculous. You can see that winds are in from off the Atlantic and we're actually bringing in quite a warm front, and this is going to be a theme as the Atlantic at this stage is actually quite warm compared to normal. Then there's a few factors which I would explain, but we've got lots to get through today. But basically, the Atlantic's slightly warmer than you'd expect at the time of year, and even though we're getting westerly Atlantic weather systems, which you think would bring cooler temperatures, basically it's going to contribute to bringing warmer temperatures. If you look at where the air is originating from, you can see the winds are in from the west, but they're originating from Spain, so it's going a long way to the west and then over to the east. So it's traveling, it's doing a long sea fetch. To bring these winds around this area of high pressure out to our west. So that's why it's a little bit warmer. Going beyond that, though, into the start of next week, it does eventually clear away, as you typically expect with a westerly wind. Things are around just slightly below average. So nothing too ridiculous, but that high pressure just, with this GFS run, remains out to our west. So we just continue to bring in the wind from a westerly, northwesterly direction. Again, conditions most unsettled in the north, but again, nothing too ridiculous at all. High pressure tries to build back in by the end of the run. Low pressures parked to our west. High pressures to our south and east over France, Spain and Portugal. Winds are in from the southwest. And we are dragging in warmer air again. Or hotter air, 15 degrees further to the south. Of course, that is 384 hours away. A long way off. Very much uncertain. But the general trend from the GFS today is for it to look relatively cool and changeable until around the 4th of August. We might see a little bit of a warmer plume for a couple of days, but again, nothing too ridiculous, maybe low to mid-20s. And then again, just kind of around to slightly above average with the upper air temperatures with this run, but nothing too ridiculous. Winds in from an Atlantic direction, but it looks relatively dry. A few showers most likely in the north and the east. Moving on to GM next, then again, high pressure's maintained out to our west through next week. So you can see an area of high pressure. The Azores high out to our west. Winds in from the northwest remaining cooler and more changeable into the start of August as we expected, and then going beyond that, again that high pressure sits out to our southwest, strengthens over Spain, as you can see there, strengthens over France and Spain, winds in from the west northwest, and is again bringing in some slightly milder air for a time around the 3rd, 4th of August, before that is beginning to clear away. But again, you can see the warmer air masses sitting just to the south, wrapped around this area of high pressure, embedded within. So yeah, it's very, very contrasting runs, to be honest, in terms of the exact patterns, but high pressure looks to pretty much remain in control. Now with the ECM, I thought it'd come out fully, but I guess I'm an hour too early. So we'll have to look at the midnight run. High pressure remains out to our west. Winds in from the north into the latter part of next week. Looking before that, though, high pressure just remaining out to our west, winds in from the northwest. It's a pretty similar theme, really, to the other runs. By the day 10, by the very end of the run, high pressure's having a go at building to our south, but it is failing as there's a deep area of low pressure sat to our northwest. Winds are in from a bit of a northwesterly direction, but it's a bit of a convoluted convoluted view, really. But again, you can see the general trend of that west-northwesterly wind just is maintained. Whenever you see that high pressure out to our west, it always means we'll be in like a west-northwesterly flow. So it's typically a little bit cooler. So now we'll look at the ensembles for London, for the the midday runs, I should say. And as you can see, the trend is around average for the next week, maybe a dipping below average around the 2nd to the 4th of August, before temperatures are recovering to around just slightly above average. Can see a few warmer runs gathering pace, or hotter runs in the longer term, but of course it's a long way off, and of course very uncertain. So there's a look at the longer range. Precipitation as well, pretty dry, most unsettled again in the north and the east. If we go further north to Aberdeen, for example, you can see it's not that ridiculously unsettled, but there are a few more precipitation spikes, and it's a lot more definitively below average for the next week, you'd say there, before temperatures do recover to around slightly above average into the 2nd week of August. Now then, we'll do the exciting part of the video for some of you. I'm not sure how many of you will like this, but why not? Why not do it as a return to form? So we're going to go to start of November, I should say. Can see initially though, winds are in from the northwest on the 28th of October. Let's get into the nitty gritty of the video now. So we're going to be looking through the CFS run for about a month, 2 months period, and then I'll go through my winter 2025-26 weather predictions for you all. So looks very unsettled from the CFS run. Look, 3rd of November, areas of low pressure are just parking over the top of the UK. Might be some named storms, very deep areas of low pressure barraging in from the Atlantic. It looks like a pretty typical weather pattern into the 2nd week of November if this were to come off. By the 9th of November, high pressure ridging out in the Atlantic slightly. Very transient range, winds in from the northeast, but of course it's still early days, so not too cold. Before, again, back into that westerly flow, low pressure, areas of low pressure barraging in from the Atlantic. Heights try to build, and they do build to our south, and then you can actually see that we turn milder, actually very mild, for a time into the 3rd week of November, if this run's correct. High pressure just remains in control. It's trying to edge northwards towards Scandinavia. Does eventually, but doesn't bring in a proper easterly wind. Actually brings more of a southeasterly wind. And temperatures are trying to be colder. Look at that plunge into, into Eastern Europe there. I'm trying to bring in an easterly wind, but of course, as usual in the UK, we just look pretty unsettled. Winds in from the south into the start of December with this run. Low pressure pack to our west, high pressure strongly to our east. See a cold plunge there for the Baltic Sea sits, and we are kind of bringing up a southerly wind, so actually quite mild to start December. Going beyond that though, an area of low pressure kind of just slips southwards over the top of the country. Winds in from the east, but again, it's not too cold. Maybe enough for a few snow showers in the north, possibly because we're dragging in some slightly colder air into Scotland, but it's nothing too exciting. Going through, continuing through December, high pressure just remains out to our west, winds in from the west-northwest for much of the run. Winds then turn to a southwesterly wind into the 3rd week of December. High pressure sat just to our south over France. Typical pass from the west pattern for December for the UK. Low pressure's way to our north, winds in from a southwesterly, quite a long fetch southwesterly as well. So air mass is really rising. 5 degree ice firm in December's pretty warm, pretty mild. And then there you go. Look at this for Boxing Day. The temperatures, oopsie daisies, what have I done there? bit of an oops moment there. To go back to that though, you can see just high pressure just sat to our south. Low pressure might be bringing in named storms to the north, but you can see on Christmas Day, winds properly turn into a southerly or southeasterly direction by this point. So Christmas Day, very mild, in fact quite warm for 27th of December. Probably temperatures 15, 16 degrees, maybe even a record breaker on the 27th of December. Got a proper block of high pressure sat just to our south and east. Winds in from a southerly direction. And that looks pretty warm. 10 degree ice firm sat right on top of the country for central Britain there. That is definitely lifting the temperatures up. Following this run, though, again, high pressure tries to retrogress towards Greenland later on into the start of January. Doesn't successfully, topples away, and then there's deep areas of low pressure moving in. So basically, high pressure dominates, and it looks very mild, wet, and windy, particularly further north. And quite mild. So, right, here we go. What is then Sendit's early winter 2025-2026 weather predictions? December, you're going to like this if you like your snow. I think it is going to be a very interesting December. I think that I think it'll start very mild. We'll have a mild start for the first week of December, but then I think we'll see high pressure established to our north. I would say more to the east. I think Scandinavian highs are going to be more likely this winter than blocking in the Atlantic or towards Greenland. Retrogression, as you might call it. You might hear from me before when I get a bit excited. But no, I think we could see high pressure established over Scandinavia into the second week of December. That would contribute easterly winds. Now, obviously, we saw last year that we saw easterly winds and it was not cold, but I think this could be quite a cold easterly. I do think we'll see a plunge of cold air into Eastern Europe, and if we tap into that from the east, then we could see a pretty decent spell of cold weather for the second week of December. I do think Christmas will be mild. It always is. I think high pressure will then slip further southwards. It doesn't last for long. But it might provide a bit of excitement in the second week of December. That's just a prediction. Don't take that as gospel. But yeah, first week I'm saying mild. Second week I'm saying it's going to turn more cold, maybe wintry, particularly in the south. I reckon the south and the southeast seeing the worst of some wintry showers, possibly longer spells of snow. Anyway, enough of that. We're bloody talking 4 months away. But I think it'll turn milder again for December. January is going to be a very unsettled month, I think, with probably stormy weather. I think we might have a named storm. Not sure what letter we're up to now, but I think we will have a named storm in January. I've just got a feeling about it, and I think it'll be very unsettled and might be a record-breaking rainfall month in the north for January. February, though, I think we're going to see a return of the cold air. This time, heights establishing between Greenland and Scandinavia, and I think we will see a quite extreme February. But it's not just me wishing for it. This is what I actually think from what I've seen from like the NAO forecasts and stuff, like Gav and stuff, and what I've looked into myself. I do think that February could be quite an interesting month as well, and I think it could be quite a prolonged spell of colder weather. Not going to say very cold, but it could be colder weather, and I just think we could see some ice days and snow days through February before March, and the spring is going to be warm. I'm telling you now, March is going to be warm. Such as the rest of the spring. But yeah, so I think this winter could be a very interesting one. The background signals are a bit iffy, to be honest. There's not a definitive signal, which gives me hope that if you want the cold weather, like me, then it will actually be delivered this year. But there you go. Obviously, the weather will do what the weather will do. We're talking 4 months away. It's just a bit of fun. Thought, well, I've returned back to the channel, so why not do a little bit of prediction? So December, quite interesting, but again, we'll have mild sectors in there. January, I think, will be a mild January, mild, wet and windy, particularly in the north. And we might see a named storm or two. And then I think February could see a proper cold return with wintry showers in the north, particularly. But widespread spells of snow. I think we're going to see areas of low pressure moving in from off the Atlantic into that cold air. And boom, we get a right snowstorm. And then I get to pull out the GIF, the Let It Snow GIF. But yeah, I just think it could be an interesting February. Below average in Feb, I'm saying above average December, above average January. So overall, probably an above average winter to come. But anyway, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. Comment, like, subscribe, found this video informative. And make sure to... if you're interested in supporting the channel, please support me through PayPal. I've left a link in the description. That's brand new, and it means that we don't have the tax from YouTube every time. It goes straight in there. And I do appreciate all of your continued support. Join the Discord, become a member and all that good stuff. And I'll see you all in the next one. Bye, everyone.